So the functional movement screen is a form of assessment that measures a combination of skills, including strength, balance, and flexibility in a variety of muscles and joints, and especially in your core. I don't believe the functional movement screen is even mentioned in your book or in the ACSM guidelines. It has been mentioned in other textbooks that I've used. Personally, I wanted to share this with you because of the advantage of their system in being comprehensive. So you go through these 7 movements, and it also tells you instructions for doing the assessment and determining whether it's poor, good, or excellent. But it also gives you, for each score, exercises to work on improvement in those movements. And so it's really big on core strength and total wellness, total fitness. And so that's one of the reasons that I think it has a good system to use. I like that they give you the specific exercises for those results instead of you having to figure it out. The problem is that you do have to pay for their system. You could find the instructions for the test online somewhere for free, but you're not going to get the application part of it, where it tells you which exercises will improve scores on each movement. So they also have a specific certification that they offer. I don't know if that's necessary. If you're an exercise professional, you should be able to read the document and figure it out yourself. But sometimes it's helpful to go. I think it's a hands-on type workshop, so that might be helpful. So when you're programming flexibility exercise, if you choose to do it separately as opposed to working on range of motion through aerobic and resistance training, the recommendations are 2 days a week, with daily being best. So you should have specific flexibility exercises at least 2 days a week, but honestly, you should just be stretching throughout the day. It just feels good. For example, I've been sitting at my desk for a couple hours, so every time I finish one of these videos, I get up, move around, stretch. It loosens my muscles up. It gives me a little bit of physical activity. It can be helpful to do before bed to relax your body if you do a static type stretch. So there are other benefits. When you're stretching, you want to reach to the point of mild discomfort. It doesn't need to be painful. No pain, no gain is a complete myth. Please don't tell that to your clients. The goal is to get to about 60 seconds total for each exercise or for each joint. And you can break that up into 2 to 4 sets of 10 to 30 seconds. It doesn't have to be each day. That is total volume over a week. And then you want to make sure you're stretching, working on flexibility in all the major muscle groups. There's different kinds of stretching. Static stretching is a slow, controlled hold of a position. So like, reaching for your toes or trying to touch the middle of your back and holding that position for 30 seconds, that's a static stretch. A dynamic stretch is a moving stretch. So you may have like arm circles or soldier walks where you kick really high as you walk. They're slow and controlled movements through the full range of motion. Okay. PNF is can be really beneficial if it's done correctly, and that's where you'll push the muscle to its initial tightness point of tightness. You stop and hold that for a few seconds. Then the person pushes against you. So there's a contraction, and then you go back and do it again. You should be able to get further in that stretch, in that range of motion when you go back the second time. I've only seen it done in clinical settings. It's not something your clients would be able to do on their own. It would be something they do with you, and you would want to make sure you're doing it correctly. Ballistic stretching are generally not advised for the general public. mostly because there's a higher risk of injury because you are doing rapid movement at the end point. So you're putting your muscles and tendons in extreme tension. However, some sports require ballistic movement. So if you're in like a tumbling or pitching where your joint is going to move really fast, then it might be good to use a ballistic stretch to warm up that joint before you start. And this slide gives you those definitions that we talked about in the previous slide. So if you are trying to work on balance, honestly, you should just try to incorporate this into your programs anyway. We've mentioned that challenging balance is a way to progress exercises because it makes those stabilizing muscles kick in while you're doing the contraction. But if you, specifically for older persons, a specific balance program is essential for reducing fall risk. So if you're working on balance specifically, you want to try to do 2 to 3 days a week. You want about 20 to 40 seconds per exercise, and it's 15 minutes for the young, that's what the Y stands for, up to 45 minutes for older adults. So for older adults, you want to really focus on balance, and honestly, it's best to incorporate this into your resistance training rather than having a whole separate day for balance. So using heel and toe stands, so instead of just standing on their heels or standing on their toes, you could do your bicep curls in a heel stand position, or do a push-up against the wall on a toe position. You want to do exercises that challenge stability or exercises that move or exercise on an unstable surface. I'll show you some of those examples in a minute. Really make sure you're strengthening the core. When I'm working with students, a lot of the mistakes I see is that they'll work on abs, like your rectus abdominis, so they'll do a crunch, but they're not working on your I'm sorry, I just completely lost it. What is the word? Your rotational muscles, the obliques. Sorry, your obliques. So they're not getting any strength in those rotational muscles of the core. They're not getting any strength in their low back, in the back extension part of it. And so you've created an imbalanced person. That means they're more likely to fall and more likely to get injured. So make sure you're working both sides of the core and especially of the ankles. Most people do calf raises. I don't know if I've ever seen somebody specifically incorporate exercise for the tibialis anterior, but you have to balance those joints out. So if you see like a calf raise where you go lower than the surface, that will get both. Walking backwards, doing heel movements, like going up and down a heel will help with TA strengthening. And so those are just some examples. And also the book advises to use free weights instead of machine weights because the machine weight is more stable because the machine is not going anywhere, right? If you're using free weights, you are the stabilizer. And so you're incorporating more muscles to stabilize the body as you lift. These are some examples of some equipment you might use to change the stability of the surface. So on the top left is a Bosu ball, and so it's just like a TheraBall, except they've cut it in half and put a platform on it so it's stable. I've seen people try to do squats on an actual TheraBall, but because it's round on the bottom, it's more likely to roll away. That's a good way to injure someone. So a Bosu ball is a good way. You can stand on it with 2 or 1 feet. A smaller Bosu ball, or even with this balance desk in the top right, you can put a foot on each. So we'd have 2 of those equipment, and then do a squat or a lunge or another activity, and that just means you engage more muscles as you're doing that activity. I have one of these on the bottom left. This blue board, you can stand on, you put 1 foot on either side of the hump. It will lean left to right, and it also spins. So if I will stand on it and do squats on that, and so that's making me more unstable. I can also, because it can rotate, I can engage my obliques intentionally as I do exercises. Another thing is this disc that is round on the bottom but stable on the top. And so it has a limit. It's not going to roll away, but it is more unstable because the bottom is round. Most of this equipment you can get off of Amazon or maybe even like your local Walmart or other department store. So research on flexibility and balance is obviously a little bit varied right now. There's some disagreement in our field on how to do it and what's best, but we all agree that it is beneficial to have an effective range of motion and have good balance to be able to perform your activities of daily living. So it's essential to work on it. How we work on it, but the jury's still out.